Hey guys, I'm back with another video. This time this is the Zerg chart for unit counters. The first video that I released was the Protoss unit counter that explained how to counter Protoss units that you can find on my channel if you're interested in that. But like I said, today I finally made the Zerg unit counter chart. So let's get started. Once again, I will have the link of this in the description of this video, so you guys can check it out or save it on computer if you're new to the game or you're just curious about the Zerg unit counters. And this graph specifically will show not how to play as a Zerg and counter other races, but how to counter Zerg units specifically. So no matter what race you are, you could check this chart and kind of see what units you want to be making against certain units. And once again, I want to say that this chart is something that I personally thought about and made these unit counters. So this is not 100% true in every single situation, but if you're new to the game or you're just not sure about certain things, how to counter them, maybe you're switching races, this is a good start for you to kind of look up and see what's going on in here. So let's get started. I'll give a couple of examples just to kind of explain to you guys how this works. So on top we have the Zerglings, and then you have the Terran races on the left side. On the middle side you have the Zerg races, and then the right side is the Protoss, did I say Zerg races? Protoss units, Zerg units. So for example, Zergling on the top here, top left, you said that Zergling is countered from Terran units by Marine, Hellion, Hellbat, and Widow Mines. Again, if you split perfectly, the Widow Mines won't be as effective, but in general, they will counter Zerglings. If you're a Zerg player and you want to counter Zerglings, you want to be building Banelings, Roaches, Lurkers, and Ultralisks. Now, if an opponent has Zerglings, you don't want to specifically tech to Lurkers to deal with them. Again, this is just a counter. So probably in the early game when Zerglings are the problem, you want to be making Banelings or Roaches. And if you're a Protoss player, the units that are super effective against Zerglings are Zealots, Adept, Sentries, the FF is Force Fields, High Templars with S means Storm, Archons, and Colossus. Now, if you scroll, every time you see a letters like these, like FF or S on the High Templar, or GS, which is Guardian Shield, all you need to do is scroll all the way down to this list, and you will see the spell counter list. You will see the unit and then the letter at what it actually means in this chart. So Ghost, if you have a Ghost icon and an S like here with against Ultralisks, that means Snipe. If you see PDD, it's PDD, SM and Seeker Missile. Sometimes you will see in one of these charts, not specifically this one, but in some other ones you will see where it says A, like you see here. The letter A means all spells from that unit. So for example, we have Vipers here from Hive units, and the Terran counters are Marine, Ghost with A letter, which means Snipe, EMP, or Cloak are all spells that counter Vipers, and you can all use all of them pretty efficiently against Vipers. You'll have a couple of them like here. For example, Vipers get countered by Infestor's Neural because you can neural the Viper, which is not something you want to be doing in every game, but it is a counter because you can neural the Viper, move it into your units, or cast parasitic bombs on enemy units, or you can just fungal it and kill it. Now, another thing I want to mention, because some of you might have not checked the Protoss unit counter chart, one thing I want to mention is sometimes you'll have certain units counter themselves. And what I mean by that is, if you check the Corruptors right here, in the Zerg counters, you can see Corruptor as well. What that means is certain units just have their own unit type counter. And Corruptors are armored units. They do pretty good damage. They're fast. So a good unit to counter it would be the Corruptor as well. That doesn't mean that you want to out-Corruptor your opponent. It's just a good unit to build and go for. Another good example of this is Roaches. So against Roaches, if you're a Zerg player playing ZVZ, you want to be making either Roaches, Lurkers, or Ultralisks. The reason why Roaches are the counter to Roaches is because the way that ZBZ works, roaches are made in the early stages of the game and into mid stages of the game. So, for example, if I put that lurkers only counter roaches, if you try to go straight into lurkers, you would die. So you need to make roaches in order to deal with roaches, and in that way they do counter them because that's something you need to make. It's not really an option. Also, the units are sorted by their techs, so tech paths. So, for example, if you look at, let's say, queens, they're counted by zerglings, then go the banelings, but there's no banelings, so then moves into roaches, ravagers, hydras, lurkers, and ultralisks. So basically, every time you check for the unit counter, the unit that's last is kind of last tech to counter that unit and is the most expensive option. For example, here you have the Void Ray. Out of all these units, the Void Ray is something that not necessarily most expensive, but something you will get at the latest point in the game because they're the tech on the way there's that expensive production buildings or the unit cost itself. Another thing I want to mention is you can counter certain unit compositions by checking this chart. What I mean by that is if you're struggling against, for example, I'm just giving an example here. You're struggling against Roach Hydra as a Terran player, which is probably not happening, but for the sake of argument. So you're having issues against Roaches and Hydras. So you can check both of those units, and if you look under Roaches, you see Siege Tanks counter it, and then if you look under Hydras, Siege Tanks counter it. So Siege Tanks are something to be building against Roaches and Hydras, but again, you don't want to build pure Siege Tanks, you want to be mixing some units, and one of the units that you kind of want to mix against pretty much everything are Marines and Marauders. So add a couple of those and you'll be good to go. Another thing you can do is, now that you are playing, for example, Roach Hydra, and you see that Siege Tanks are countering both of your units that you're making, both Roaches and Hydras, what you can do is, once I release the Terran chart, you can see which what Zerg units counter Siege Tanks, and then you can make, counter for them. So your unit composition is Roach, Hydra, plus the counter for Siege Tanks, which is the Viper, but more about that in the Terran chart video. And I think that's pretty much it. This is pretty cool thing to check. Again, there is a Protoss unit counter chart if you're interested in that, how to counter Protoss units. And no matter what race you are, no matter what league you are, this is something that can be pretty useful for you. Thank you guys for watching this video. Terran chart video will be coming probably a week from now on or so. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.